I used to work in an office building that was originally built to be a children's hospital. It's a smaller building, just 3 stories tall, with a basement that once upon a time was a hospital morgue. The building was uncanny. It was a little weird attending staff meetings in rooms that you could tell used to be operating rooms, or checking in with my supervisor in their office, knowing that the office used to be a patient's bedroom. There are very few windows in the building. My understanding is that when it was built, people believed sunlight was bad for the children's treatment. My friends on the 2nd floor claimed to hear the laughter of children and running footsteps after dark. But I myself never saw or heard anything. I do have one personal antidote, though. One night, after working a couple hours overtime, I took the elevator. Instead of taking me to the lobby, the elevator first took me all the way down to the basement. The door slid open and stayed open for a good minute. After that, I was good about taking the stairs. Four years ago, I moved in with my boyfriend into a house he had been living in with a friend of his for about 6 months prior to that. At the time, I had a 4-year-old daughter from a previous relationship. The house was an old house, and it had loads of bird sheds out the back that were completely dark, and when I moved in, I felt this weird fear every time I was near the back garden near the bird sheds. One day I asked my boyfriend if he ever felt it, and he said he never went out there because it made him anxious. So we decided to look together, and there was weird chains attached to the walls of the bird shed. I don't know what birds need to be chained up to a wall, but it was so creepy that we decided to put locks on the doors of the sheds. When I first moved into the house, weird things started happening. I'd be in bed and I'd feel someone tickling my foot, or they would grab my ankle when my boyfriend would be sound asleep beside me. The house had automatic lights that would turn on if anyone walked in the hallway, but didn't have light switch so you could turn on or off. So if you had to go to the toilet in the middle of the night, it was inevitable the light would switch off while you were on the toilet, and would only switch on when you walked back into the hallway. Plenty of weekends I was home alone while my daughter was at her dad's, and my boyfriend was a musician and was playing a gig, and I would be in bed alone, and the light would just switch on itself, alerting me someone was there even though I know nobody else was in the house. My daughter moved into my boyfriend's ex-roommate's room, and anytime I went into the room, the hair would rise on the back of my neck. I would get shivers up my spine, and I just felt weird. I asked her, did she ever feel weird? And she told me no, she loved her new bedroom. I remember being in there changing her bed sheets one day, and I felt my hair being pulled. Turning, I expected to see her, but there was no one there. I left the bed sheets and ran into my room, petrified, and made her sit with me and watch TV until my boyfriend came home. Another time, I bought a blender and plugged it in. It was brand new, and a good brand, and the thing exploded into smoke when I plugged it into the wall. But later on, when my boyfriend went to use it, it worked perfectly. If I was in the shower, and the shower would suddenly turn cold or turn off altogether, and the door would jam so I couldn't get out unless my boyfriend kicked the door from the other side. But the shower was always fine for him, and he never got stuck in the bathroom. So I had to ask him to sit on the toilet while I showered, because I was so scared. I'd be lying on the sofa watching TV, and all of a sudden, I'd feel like I was choking, and pressure was on my neck, as if hands were pulling me back. When I finally broke free, there was no one there. Another time, I was getting ready for work, and I was brushing my teeth when I saw the post come through the letterbox. I peeked over to see who it was for, but the letter was facing down, so I left it and went to finish getting ready. And when I came back, The letter was facing up, and it had a man's name on the letter. So I rang my landlord and asked him who used to live in the house, and he told me it was his uncle, who was called Michael, the name on the letter. After a bit of probing, I found out Michael was a bird keeper. He had never married, and he had a hatred for women, hence why my boyfriend never noticed anything, and it all happened when I was alone. He had died in the bedroom my daughter was now living in, which gave me the serious creeps. Which brings me to my last story of the ghost in my old house. One day, my boyfriend was in a different county attending a funeral. I was off work and I had spent the day cleaning the house and doing laundry. So my daughter was upstairs playing, and I was out in the living room watching TV when I heard a big bang. Now, the way this house was laid out, downstairs there was a teeny sitting room with a small window, no fireplace, like a little shoebox, and the kitchen was next door, and it had a window, but the window didn't lead outside. It led into a small, very creepy conservatory that I didn't go into because it was filled with spiders. This particular day, there was no windows or doors open anywhere in the house. I called to see if my daughter was in the kitchen, but heard her voice from upstairs. So I went into the kitchen to see what the noise was, and a massive black bird sat on top of the fridge, staring at me. A lump rose in my throat, and I was stood frozen to the ground, unable to move. The bird lunged at me, and I screamed and ran out of the room, shutting the door behind me. I rang my sister-in-law, crying my eyes out, and she told me she would be there as soon as possible. And when she came, she opened the door to help me get the bird out, but there was no bird at all. The only thing she saw was a kitchen that had been trashed and butter that had been left on top of the counter with a huge bird feet imprints in it. So she knew I wasn't crazy. She checked the house and saw no windows open, so we still don't know how he got in or where he went. We left the house a few weeks later and moved into a new place where I felt safe and comfortable ever since. But every time I think of that house, shivers run up my spine, and I just feel cold and full of fear. When I was like 6, my father was broke and we lost our house and store. So we had to move to my grandmother's house and live there for a while. When we lived in my grandmother's house, which was an old house with a big yard in the middle and 3 big separate rooms around the yard, it was so old, something like 150 years old. She was a religious woman who cared about religion and etc. One of these 3 rooms was always closed to everyone and was completely empty, and my grandmother prohibited anyone to go there to take their guests there. And her reason was very weird. She believed that this room is a home of some jinns, that we should not bother them at all. She always told us stories about some encounters with them, or some crazy stuff about what a jinn is, and that they can shapeshift into animals like cats and dogs, etc. During that time that we were in the house, nothing strange happened, and we left after 3 years to a new house. She was always so nice and a very mysterious woman, and so much against drinking alcohol or doing anything bad. She was just very religious. She died at the age of 74 due to a kidney condition. Her death was a big shock for me. I always knew that sooner or later this day would come. But the fact that although she was too old, she was not an old angry woman. She was a very nice and good-tempered for dealing with younger generations, and she got along with them. So she had a very special place in our hearts. After her funeral and some traditional ceremony, my father sent me to see the house and clean it up and turn off everything like the refrigerator and microwave, etc. When I went there, at first glance, it was a really sad moment. I remember my childhood and some other stuff that was long past. So I started to check the kitchen and rooms to make sure everything is all right. I finished the first 2 rooms, but when it was the last room to check, I found it still had its old lock on it. So I hesitated. I called my dad and told him about the lock. And I told him I can break it with something because it's so old. And he said that I did not have to do this room because it was always empty. It is unlikely that there's anything special. So I packed everything and went back home. But again, the room got into my mind. The old stories that my grandma told us about those things that lived in that room. But all of a sudden, my girlfriend called me and I picked up. Remembering these things made me very upset. And through the conversation, she was trying to comfort me. I told her about the room and some of the stories my grandmother told me. And my girlfriend, she loves horror movies. And she loves people, that explore those abandoned places. And she is into spirits and ghosts. And she had a lot of questions for me. She asked if it was possible if we can go there for a night, just to see what the house looks like in the nighttime with other people. But I said no, we can't. I don't have the keys with me. It was a lie. I just felt it was disrespectful to my grandmother. I just didn't want to do it. But it was already too late. When girls want something, they keep pestering you until they get what they want. And from that day forward, she asked me about the room day after day after day and begged me. After a week, I got really tired of this conversation, so I decided to get her with some of my friends, and we planned a night to go ahead and go see the house, just so she would stop pestering me about it. So I called her and told her that I got the keys so we can go there for tomorrow night with some of our friends, only one time, so she would stop asking me about it. She was very happy and agreed. The next day, we all went to the house. It was a very creepy place in general, due to its old creepy design. Everyone really liked the house. We took our stuff into the rooms because we were going to stay the night. And people started questioning me about the 3rd room. And I told them about some of the stories that my grandmother told me about, and we were not allowed to go into that room. Everyone wanted to open the door to see what's happening. One of them suggested that we could talk to them. We would just need to get a Ouija board out and call for them. I tried to stop them by saying that I don't have the keys to that door. It was a very old lock. And one of my friends said, well, we could break the lock. It's a very old lock. And that he promised he would replace the lock by himself with a new one tomorrow. So I couldn't agree with him. Everyone was so eager to go there and see what is going on. And maybe I myself wanted to see what's going on in there. I just needed someone to push me for it, so I agreed. And we broke the lock with a piece of iron that I found in the backyard. And we entered the room. First, it was really dark. We had to turn on our mobile flashlights to see that nothing special. We saw at first glance it was just an old room with an old carpet in the middle of it and some empty closet. It was 5 of us. And they said that we needed some candles. And we sat in a circle. A lot of my friends were fooling around and mocking each other, saying it was scary, and they're making weird sounds and saying funny words like, come on, we know you're here, let us see you, and so on. After a while, we finally got the candles, and we put the Ouija board in the middle, and everyone focused to see what would happen. And I personally do not believe in these things, so I just watched, and I didn't participate in it. They asked if anything is in the room, show us a sign, and things like that. No matter how hard they tried, nothing happened. Not even any small movements. After a while, they got tired, and it was kind of late, so we decided to stop the madness and go back home for sleep. So we packed all of our things and left. That night, when I went to sleep, I had a really bad nightmare. But I couldn't remember what it was about. When I woke up, I was scared as hell. I thought that maybe due to last night, I was hallucinating. So again, I went back to sleep. The next morning when I woke up to go back to work, I couldn't find my keys, no matter how hard I tried. And after a while, my mother found them on top of my car. I was confused because I'm pretty sure that I took them into my room last night. But it really bothered me. I focused on my work that day until my friend called me and told me that he also had some weird experiences, like missing his stuff in his house and finding them in weird places. But when I called my girlfriend, she said nothing was wrong and didn't see anything weird around her. I tried to forget about it, but I had a strange feeling like something was watching me when I was alone. In my room, my dog starts to act weird, like barking around the home, focusing on a corner on the wall. He was looking at it. He was very cautious of something. It was very strange. When I was trying to sleep, I had a nightmare most of the time, and my stuff started to go missing a lot, and I could not find nothing for a while. And then out of the blue, they're there. They're just peering in weird, different places that I know that I did not put them there. But the weird thing was that it was happening only to me and my other friend. He also had really weird feelings and things were going missing, and he was having nightmares. He told me that his mother was saying that too, that she felt scared and she was seeing things and she felt like something was watching her. I told him I know an old man in our family who I think knows something about these things, so I went to him the next day and I asked him about the situations. He also knew me and my grandmother, so he probably knows about the room too. He was the best person to get help, and after he heard everything, he told us by going into that room and making fun of them and other things that with my friends, we have angered. We have angered them and we have disrespected them, and they were offended. He told me that they weren't so bad, because if they were, they could actually harm you. They're doing this because they want us to know that they're angry from that night. They want us to know it. He told me I should go back to the room and bring some type of offering for peace. Bring some chicken, some type of food, and put it in the middle of the room and lock the door. He also told me that I needed to give a certain amount of money to the poor people for charity. After that, he told me to go back to the room, and if the chicken was gone, it means they accepted your apology. If not, it means they're still really angry at me and my friend. But I was really scared to go back to that room. Me and my friend, we went and we did what we were told, and we locked the door with a new lock. We got back and I couldn't sleep that night. So me and my friend, we just chatted all night long. We couldn't believe what we did, and the whole situation around us was so strange. It was around 6 a.m. when I told my friend that we did it all and we needed to check the room and see if the food was gone. So we went there with my car, all 5 of us, that night, and me and him were the only ones who had this problem. I don't know why though. When we got there again, my whole body was freezing. I could see goosebumps all around in my hands and arms. I just wanted to end all this crazy stuff. I wanted to go back to normal life. So I went at the door and I opened the lock. When I went in, I just couldn't believe what I see. There was nothing there but an empty plate. All the food was gone. I was the only one who had the keys. I was so shocked. Then my friend came from behind me. He was shocked too. He asked if I was taking the food to scare him, but I told him no. I was not fooling around. I didn't know if I should have been happy or scared. We went and locked the door again, and we got back home. We didn't talk much about it anymore. We were so tired due to not sleeping the whole night. So we both got back home, and I slept really good, like old times. I still don't have any explanation about what happened. I didn't realize what bad jinns could do. I'm really happy that they weren't, and we were the lucky ones. The only thing I just know is that maybe there are many more things going on around us which we can't see. This incident caused me to have more respect for religions and ghosts and spirits, and I kind of believe in some other world beyond us. But I also didn't see anything like any shadow figure some people talk about, or heard any weird breathing, like some say. I just had some bad feelings and started missing stuff. I had nightmares. I still don't know why. It just affected me and my friends and not the others. All I can say after this incident is that don't make fun of anything. If you don't believe in something, it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Sometimes it can go really wrong. My then boyfriend, now husband, inherited the house, built in 1950, of his grandparents back in 2018, because his grandfather couldn't take stairs anymore, which forced them to move out. We moved in shortly after in May of 2019. The first few weeks went well. We cleaned the house and made it our home. In summer, things started getting weird. FYI, my boyfriend never believed in ghosts or anything paranormal. I was just hoping that the creepy stories I heard were just stories. But here are a few of our encounters. It started out quite small. Random things like the TV and microwave or the washing machine started acting out. We didn't think much of it due to the fact that they were quite old already, but were still working, so we didn't throw them out. Doors started opening and closing on their own without any door or window open, so the wind was not the culprit. One time a door, which never makes any noise when being opened and closed, started opening with the loudest and chilling screech I have ever heard. I closed and reopened it to test it out, and it didn't make a sound. One night, my boyfriend and I were in bed. It was around 10 p.m. We were both awake talking about some stuff when suddenly a loud noise came from across the hallway. It sounded like a big metal ladder we kept in that room the noise came from had fallen over. We got up to check, but everything was normal. Nothing shattered, and the ladder was standing perfectly straight, leaning against the wall. One night, I was home alone watching TV because my boyfriend had to work late. It was around 9:45 p.m. Next to the TV was a glass door. Something kept me looking at that door, and every time my eyes landed on the door, I noticed a piece of white fabric in the left corner of the door, as if someone in a long white flowy gown ran past the door. This happened multiple times during the night. I told my boyfriend, and he opened the glass door to take a look. As soon as I stepped near the door, I started freezing like it was winter. But it was summer, and it was really hot outside. We couldn't find anything that explained what I saw. One time, my boyfriend and I were getting ready for bed. He was already in our bedroom when I was still brushing my teeth. It was almost midnight when I heard a little girl, 4 or 5 years old, tell a story. I thought that my boyfriend was watching a video, so I brushed it off. When I came into the bedroom, I asked him what he was watching. He looked at me confused and said that he wasn't watching a video at all, and that he thought I was watching a video of my little niece chattering around. It couldn't come from outside. As I said, it was almost midnight, and it was fall, so the nights were getting quite cold. Also, all of our windows were closed, and it sounded like the girl was standing right next to us. My boyfriend and I were fighting over something, and I told him to leave me alone so I could calm down a little. He went outside to work in the garden, and I stayed in the bedroom when I heard something that sounded like someone was tapping their fingers impatiently on a firm surface. It came from the door frame right outside the bedroom. It startled me a little, and I stared out the hallway. Nothing. Then I heard it again. I got nervous and grabbed my phone to call my boyfriend. He came back inside to look, but there was nothing, of course.